Hey there, so today we are here at Rush to Bay Outfitters in Hallettsville, Texas, and we're going to be taking a look at a couple of new offerings from Mathews Archery. I've got with me two different bows now. I've got the flagship Vertix, which they introduced for 2019, and I also have the Traverse. So I'll let you know which one I'm going to be shooting for 2019 and the reason I chose one over the other, so stay tuned. So before I get started with the video, I do want to pose a poll question, which I will reiterate at the end of this video, and that is, if you could purchase any bow for 2019, what would it be and why? You'll just leave your comment down in the comment section below and let me know which bow you would choose for 2019 and the reason why. Again, we're here at Rush to Bay Outfitters in Hallettsville, Texas. I've got my good friend Tim Layton as the manager here at Rush to Bay. Yes, appreciate you joining us, Tim. Yes, many of you that are familiar with TexasBowhunter.com know that Rush to Bay Outfitters and their sister company Forever Last Products are longtime sponsors of TexasBowhunter.com. And we appreciate that support.
Absolutely.
Many of you may also know that Mathews Archery is also a longtime supporter of TexasBowhunter.com. And as you might expect, I've been shooting a Mathews bow for many years. I currently shoot the Mathews No Cam, but Mathews announced their 2019 lineup back last November.
Correct.
And there were some pretty intriguing things. Mathews has their hype machine, and they introduced their Vertix video on social media platforms, and there were three things that really stood out to me.
Right.
The first being that they talked about it's 20% less vibration and even quieter than last year's Tri.
We're able to finesse a number of things that work together synergistically to get more of that vibration to cancel itself. That's one thing everybody says, there's no way you're going to make a bow that's shoots smoother than a Tri-X. And I really chased that down. We chased that down.
That's a pretty bold claim.
That, considering how quiet the Tri-X already is.
Right.
Dead in hand, just an exceptional bow. It's taken leaps and bounds ahead of everything else.
So Mathews claiming that they reduced that by an additional 20%, that's saying something. And we'll talk more about that as we get into the specs of the bow. The second thing that really stood out to me is the switch weight cam system. So explain to us a little bit about the concept behind the switch weight.
The switch weight is, it basically gives the user a multi-purpose bow. You can actually switch the weight system and the let off on that same bow. If you want to do 3D, you want to do target, you want to take it hunting, all in the same year, you can use the same bow, change your poundage, change your let off. And as you know, the bows will operate at peak efficiency when they're maxed out. So you don't have to actually adjust your weight on your limbs, you can adjust it just in the modules themselves.
All right, so the third thing that really stuck out to me in that video was the Ultra Rest Integrate MX Dovetail Rest System. So tell us a little bit about that and what's the concept there.
The whole point is to actually make the rest a little bit closer to your riser and to actually integrate it in as part of the bow instead of having it mounted right into your burger hole. So what they did was they partnered with QAD to make sure that they can get this dovetail system on all of their flagship bows. It's revolutionary.
It's actually a more streamlined version of their very popular Ultra Rest system. So, and it integrates directly with that. So those three things really piqued my interest about the bow when the video was released. And there's some other great things about the bow. So tell us a little bit about the specs. Here we have, this is the Mathews Vertix, which is the flagship lineup. So tell us just a little bit real quickly about the specs of the bow.
Specs of the bow, you're looking at a 30-inch axle to axle, 6-inch brace height, which gives it a lot of comfort.
Yep.
And they have of course the cross-centric cam system on it, and very smooth shooting bow.
Okay, IBO rating?
It's 343.
343. Okay, so a lot of people have compared this to last year's Tri-X. Which the Tri-X was 28-inch axle to axle, so they actually extended this additional 2 inches.
Correct.
Maintained the 6-inch brace height.
Absolutely.
Okay, and without sacrificing any speed. I think the IBOs are actually exactly the same.
And not only that, but they actually lighten, like you spoke about earlier, they got a 20% quieter bow.
Right. So if there's one piece of feedback negative that I saw from the Tri-X last year, it's that it wasn't a very forgiving bow, which you would expect out of a 28-inch axle to axle, is that you lose a little bit of forgiveness. So by stretching it out a little bit, presumably you get a little bit more forgiveness out of this bow. One other feature that stands out for the Vertix is they changed up the grip this year. So it's a little bit thinner. If Mathews has kind of gotten a knock on anything on their previous bows, it's been with their grip. When I picked up the Vertix, when I picked up the Traverse, That grip fits in there really nice. I think they've designed it so that you get a more consistent feel, more consistent grip each and every time that you draw it back, which is of course going to increase your consistency in shooting. After spending a little time reading online, of course, TexasBowhunter.com, watching some YouTube videos, one of the things that started popping out to me is people started talking about the Traverse bow. And as I started reading a little bit more about it, it started getting my interest as well. So let's talk about real quick just the specs of the Traverse and how it's different than the Vertix.
This is the Traverse. This one is a 33-inch axle to axle. It's got a 6 5/8 inch brace height. It has a 338 IBO rating, so not far off from Vertix.
And it uses the same cross-centric cam system?
Absolutely, same cam system.
With the exception of it does not have the module system.
Correct. Does not have the switch weight system. And you're looking at 75 or 80% let off availability.
Okay. This bow also has the integrate rest capability.
Absolutely.
As do all the bows for 2019, I believe.
Yes, they do, and it's something they partnered with QAD to make sure that all of their bows in their lineup had that.
Yeah, and that's exclusive to Mathews for this year.
Correct.
So after doing the research and digging into Mathews' lineup of bows, for me personally, I kind of narrowed it down to the Traverse and the Vertix. There's several other bows in the lineup for 2019, but for me, I narrowed it down to these two bows. And of course, the next step is to get my hands on them and shoot them. So of course, I came over to Brush to Bay to see Tim. You had a Vertix 29-inch, 70-pound draw. So you set it up for me, and I was able to shoot it. My first shot was, wow, this is quiet. As advertised, no hand shock. I was really impressed with it. Pretty smooth draw cycle. Everything about it was really great. Unfortunately, you didn't have at the time the Traverse, so I wasn't immediately able to shoot it. But fortunately, the very next week, I took a business trip to Denver. I ran up to No Limits Archery, and they had the Traverse in 29-inch, 70-pound, and so I was able to shoot it there. And again, one of the things that I first noticed was the draw cycle was extremely smooth. The way it just broke over, hit that back wall. Very small valley. Now that one had the 75% let off on it, and if you didn't hold it back, it was almost jumping. Wanting to jump, and which can be a good thing or a bad thing. But I think it makes you hold that back wall a little bit better. But it had a real solid back wall to it. After shooting it a couple times, again, very little hand shock, very smooth. And both these bows, one thing I noticed, and especially compared to the no cam HTR that I've been shooting, is the speed. Both of them very quick bows.
Very quick bows.
After shooting both of them, I did know enough that I was comfortable enough with either of the bows and the way they shot and the speed and the way they felt in my hand to know that the final decision would come to other features in the specs rather than shootability. So I'd be perfectly happy with either one of those bows. So even at that time, my first intrigue was with the switch weight cam system. I just thought that was going to put the Vertix over the top. But the more I started thinking about it and started evaluating it, I think it's a great concept that Mathews has. It's a truly innovative concept. It's a game-changing type of thing. But to think that you're just going to switch your modules and then take the same setup that you have been shooting and shoot it at 60 pounds and shoot it at 75 pounds, I think there's going to be a lot more to it than simply changing your mods. Is that correct?
Correct, absolutely. Anytime you're going to make those significant changes, you're going to have to redo your setup.
It's going to change the dynamics of your arrow and the spine of your arrow. It's going to change. Obviously, you're going to have to make sight adjustments.
More of impact will change.
But if you are somebody that spends a lot of time shooting, say in the off season, you shoot a lot of indoor targets, 3D targets, that kind of thing, where you're going to shoot a lot every day, and you want to shoot a lower poundage to save your shoulders, then maybe it's something that you want to do so that you can have a different arrow setup that you're going to have, for the lower poundage and then a higher one for hunting. It's not as simple as just changing out the mods and then using your existing setup. So it became a less important factor to me at that point. I started looking more at the specs of 33-inch axle to axle, which I'm used to shooting a 32-inch axle to axle with the no cam, and then also that 6 5/8 inch brace height. To me, the forgiveness is really kind of what put the Traverse over the edge for me. Just naturally you're going to get a little bit more forgiveness, especially at the longer ranges. And so that's kind of what put the Traverse over the edge for me. I think I would be perfectly happy with either of the two bows. All right, so Can't talk about all the positives of a bow without at least mentioning a couple of negatives. And if there's any negative that I would have with Mathews in general is both of these bows are pretty heavy.
Right.
So
overall weight.
The overall weight, the Vertix I think comes in at 4.67 pounds, the Traverse at 4.7.
Correct.
They're basically identical in terms of the weight. Now I think some of that is a little bit by design. Obviously, a heavier bow is going to hold better in your hand. You're going to get a little bit more consistency with that. It's going to help with that noise and the vibration, the heavier bow that you have.
Right.
You know, Hoyt's got a bow that's, you know, carbon fiber, of course, and I think you shoot that bow.
Absolutely, yes.
And it's considerably lighter than the Mathews, but I think you would also agree it's quite a bit more
It has
noise.
a lot more noise.
Yeah,
and
than the Mathews.
it does have the dead hand, but it's quite a bit noisier.
Here in Texas, most of the time we're hunting from either ground blind, tree stand. And so we're driving ourselves up to the stand, or we don't have a very far walk. So the weight isn't going to be as important. And it's actually probably going to be a little bit more beneficial in helping you to hold the bow more stable.
I would say so, yeah, absolutely.
It becomes a little bit more of an issue for Western type hunters where you're hiking in.
Yes.
And the common saying there is ounces are pounds and pounds are pain.
Absolutely.
And so, but that's one of the areas where I will sacrifice just a little bit of weight for the quietness of a bow. And, so 4.67 pounds isn't super heavy, but it's certainly not in the lightweight category.
Correct.
So the other kind of negative feedback that a lot of people have with Mathews bows is zebra strings. I've shot the zebra for many years on my previous Mathews bows. I shot the no cam for several years before I actually came in last summer.
Correct.
We switched it out for a custom string before I went on my elk hunt. I just use the zebra string as the backup. And I'll probably do the same thing here. So I'll go ahead and get this one broken in. 60X is also a sponsor on TexasBowhunter.com. So I'll probably order a new string for that and then use the zebra as a backup. But again, that's being a little bit nitpicky. All right, so that's just a real quick rundown of the Mathews Vertix and the Traverse. Of course, there's a lot of great bow companies out there. Just in the sake of full disclosure, Mathews Archery is a site sponsor for TexasBowhunter.com. As part of that, they do provide us with a couple of bows each year. But that said, they don't pay me to make any kind of videos. They're not paying or sponsoring this video or anything like that. There are a lot of great manufacturers out there, a lot of great bow manufacturers,
Absolutely.
whether you're talking Hoyt, Bear, PSE, Elite, there's any number of bows, great bows for 2019.
Sure.
The one thing that I would encourage you to do is if you're in the market for a new bow, go to your local archery shop.
Absolutely.
Talk to your bow technician. Don't just buy from the big box stores or buy it online. Make sure you're getting a bow fit for you. Shoot the bows. Figure out which one feels best to your hand, because we all have different
We all do.
factors, different considerations on what we want to see in a bow.
Absolutely. You've got to get the bow in your hand. It's not about aesthetics. It's more about shootability, what it's comfortable for you.
And of course, I'm going to say if you're in the south central Texas Gulf Coast area, Brush to Bay Outfitters is in a pretty good location here in Hallettsville, Texas. They're my local shop. Within miles of my house, so I'm thankful to have
We're glad to have you.
Local shop here. Of course, if you're in North Texas, go up and see the guys over at Cinnamon Creek Archery. Jeff has been a big help in helping me choose between the Vertix and the Traverse and give me his feedback on that. We've got On Target Archery is also a site sponsor. Live Oak over in College Station. So we have a lot of great archery shops here in Texas. So make sure you're supporting your local shop, and I think it'll make your whole shooting and hunting experience more enjoyable. So
Absolutely.
Tim, I appreciate you joining us.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you. We appreciate you having me.
Appreciate you helping me set up these bows. I'd like to see if we can make a lot more of these videos, and maybe even we can do a video on setting up
Absolutely.
the bow. We're getting ready to set it up, so
Great
we'll
idea.
shoot some video for that. As I mentioned earlier, let me know in the comments section below if you could shoot any bow in 2019, which bow would it be and why? It doesn't have to be limited to one of these two, just any bow. Which bow would you shoot and why? So again, appreciate you joining me, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.